All right, and we are live.
The February 27th, 2026 Oregon State Lottery Commission is now in session. It's noted for the record that commissioners are attending this meeting via the web. Commissioner Geller is excused and a quorum of commissioners is present for today's meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Conrad,
Here.
Commissioner Dodd,
Here.
Commissioner Weller,
Here.
Chair Ramirez.
Here. Will the clerk please inform the commission of any guests that have joined today's meeting?
Yes, joining us today is Nate Carter from the Department of Justice.
Members of the public had the opportunity to provide written public comment to the commission for this meeting. Public comment is provided as an opportunity to receive input from the public. Commissioners will not respond to questions or comments during the meeting. A full copy of the written comments received were provided to the commissioners in advance of the meeting. Will the clerk please share any comments received which meet the guidelines outlined on the lottery's website?
Chair Ramirez and Commissioners, Pete Goodman has submitted 6 submissions over the last month, all of which have been provided to you with your meeting materials. The following is a summary of those communications. Mr. Goodman stated that during the January 30th, 2026 Oregon Lottery Commission meeting, only 1 of 7 submitted public comments was shared, and neither Director Mike Wells nor the commissioners responded, which he viewed as inconsistent with normal practice. He requested that the minutes reflect that his comments were not displayed, fully provided, or addressed. He further alleged errors by Clerk Elisa Zavala, including stating that all comments had been shared when only 1 appeared online, and for summarizing his remarks in a way he believes omitted key details, including concerns about 2 $116,666 prizes. He requested that all comments be added to the January and February records and would like each commissioner to verbally acknowledge the receipt of all 12 comments received over the last 2 months. Mr. Goodman described extensive allegations of prize fraud in the winner database, citing examples involving a Medford pawn shop repeated Stephen B. entries and slot machine prizes he says were impossible for the machines to generate. He also referenced alleged involvement by IGT in unusually high commissions to certain slot retailers. He asserted that Oregon Lottery financial reporting practices, including gross receipts, accounting, and unreported expenses, inflated lottery profits that support state revenue bonds. He linked these concerns to multiple state agencies and past audits. He further claimed that House Bill 3115 in 2025 rule changes making winners anonymous and authorizing third-party couriers were used to hide past fraud after the lottery deleted 4 years of winning data. He stated that Governor Tina Kotek, Director Mike Wells, commissioners, and staff were notified of these issues before the law was signed. The summary concluded with Mr. Goodman asserting that his investigations and documentation were provided to state leaders but never publicly addressed, and he calls for the resignations of Governor Kotek and Director Wells while noting he shared materials with federal authorities. That concludes the summary of public comments received this month. Full copies of the public comment submissions may be requested via a public records request on the lottery's website.
Thank you. I'd now like to turn it over to Deputy Director Colin Drayle.
Good morning and thank you, Chair Ramirez and Commissioners. I'm filling in for Director Wells today. And before I get started on the typical monthly director's report, there are 2 things I'd like to cover. First, I want to acknowledge that you received our January draft financial statements in your packet and a memo addressing a change in useful life for VLTs. The financial statements will be presented for approval in April. Do you have any questions or comments for Carl? All right, thank you. Second, I have information to share about the public comment process on behalf of the organization. As we have new commissioners and recent interest in how we handle public comments, we thought it may be useful to explain the approach. Foundationally, the Oregon Lottery welcomes public comment and we value input and transparency. We encourage comments on agenda items or matters that may come before the commission, and every comment received is provided to commissioners verbatim. For effective meeting management, written comment taking more than 3 minutes to read out loud is summarized and read into the meeting record. If an individual submits multiple comments, we provide one combined summary. Written comments may be submitted via an online form or by mail and must include the submitter's name, the topic, and how the comment relates to the commission's work to be accepted. These guidelines are outlined on the website and in the online form. If a comment relates to a matter within the commission's responsibilities but doesn't meet the public comment guidelines, it is still provided to commissioners for review, but not summarized in the meeting. Comments outside the commission's purview are forwarded to the appropriate lottery staff, and when relevance is unclear, the commission chair will be consulted on how to best handle it. All written public comments provided to the commission are available to the general public through Lottery's public records request process. Comments submitted as part of rulemaking follow a separate rulemaking process. Because public comment is not required under Oregon's public meetings law, the commission retains discretion to limit public comment to agenda topics, decline duplicative submissions, exclude comments outside our jurisdiction, and apply reasonable rules that support orderly and efficient proceedings. In support of orderly, efficient proceedings, lottery commissioners have historically refrained from responding to, commenting on, or debating public comment submissions during meetings, but have used this public input to help inform deliberation and decision-making. We recently received questions about not posting written comments on the meeting site. The meeting site is intended to support the commission's work and is not intended to serve as a public posting forum. Publishing individual submissions online can unintentionally create a platform for personal statements or repeated postings, particularly when individuals submit multiple comments each month. To ensure an orderly and efficient process, all written comments are instead provided directly to commissioners, and summaries are included in the meeting record consistent with our guidelines. This process is documented in internal guidelines and is outlined on the lottery website. So our intent for sharing this information today is hopefully it was useful and hopefully it clears up any confusion around the process. I'll pause here and create space for any questions or comments about the process shared. Commissioner Dodd.
Yes, I'd just like to say thank you for the explanation as a new commissioner. It's helpful and it sounds like a good process.
You're welcome. With that, I will move on to the director's report and start with some lottery news. For the third time, Oregon Lottery received the World Lottery Association's highest level of certification for our responsible gambling and safer play program. We first earned level 4 in 2018. A significant amount of work goes into earning this certification, including robust player education, retailer training, and research investments. An example of this work is our commitment to National Problem Gambling Awareness Month. Next month's theme, Caring Communities, Stronger Futures, emphasizes a collective responsibility for preventing gambling-related harm and a community-driven approach for awareness and support. Since 1992, more than $155 million in lottery funds has supported problem gambling treatment and services. Next, I'll provide you a brief mobile app project update. A core team at Lottery is working on the finishing touches for an RFP for a new mobile app incorporating digital claims and payments. We are pivoting our approach for this strategic priority. In our last project update for the Commission, we engaged with Brightstar to explore their solution. We now know we need to expand our knowledge of the market options available and we'll return to the Commission with further updates. I will now provide a few sales highlights. This business year, the $30 Scratch It is generating 11.6% of total sales, more than the $1 and $3 price points combined, and nearly as much as the $2 price point. While Mega Millions is down, Powerball is ahead of last year by 156% due to the $1.8 billion jackpot in September and the $1.7 billion jackpot in December. Raffle sales started in January and sales are down 6% compared to the same days in the market last year. The Super Bowl generated $1.3 million in revenue from $8.4 million in wagers. We had a 9% increase in the number of unique active players placing a wager in comparison to 2025. And I'll close with a few winner stories featuring winners giving us permission to share. Carrie from Salem said, quote, "Friday the 13th is my lucky day," end quote, after enjoying a big win at Little Sammy's in Salem. He won a $25,000 jackpot with Big City Fives Diamond. Carrie's goal is to pay off bills. First-time winner, Bernadette from Eugene, was accompanied by her best friend to claim a $3,500 video lottery prize from the Grove Cafe and Lounge in Cottage Grove. Bernadette plans to buy an electric bike. And from the Super Bowl, the player with the biggest win of the day was a customer in Portland who placed a $1,000 bet back in August 25 on the Seahawks winning the game. That wager resulted in a $60,000 win. Chair Ramirez, that concludes this month's director's report.
Thank you. The minutes of the previous commission meeting have been circulated to the commission in advance of today's meeting. If there are no changes to the minutes, is there a motion to approve?
I move the minutes of the Oregon State Lottery Commission meeting held on January 30th, 2026 be approved as final as presented today.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Conrad,
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd,
Aye.
Commissioner Weller,
Aye.
Chair Ramirez.
Aye. For the record, the motion has passed. Now we'll turn it over to Chris Scarrow in rulemaking and legislative update.
Thank you, Chair Ramirez. Commissioners, Deputy Director Calandrello, good morning. For the record, my name is Chris Scarrow. I'm the Rules and Policy Analyst for Lottery, and I have two rulemaking items for you and a brief legislative update. The first rule change is to propose an amendment to the courier services rule that took effect on January 1st. You'll recall we went through a lengthy process last year to adopt a new rule that regulates courier services in Oregon. The rule is similar to regulations adopted in other states and implements best practices for courier services, including prohibiting them from selling tickets to a customer who is outside the state at the time of purchase. Now, despite the prohibition on out-of-state sales in the rule, some argue that the rule continues to allow them to sell a chance to win a prize based on an outcome in an Oregon lottery game to an out-of-state customer, so long as the technical legal ownership of the ticket doesn't transfer. Lottery disagrees with that reading of the rule, and in order to resolve any ambiguity in the rule, Director Wells recommends the Commission consider adopting an amendment to clarify that out-of-state sales prohibition includes selling any interest in an Oregon lottery ticket or operating a matching service in which a customer buys a ticket in a separate lottery, giving them a right to a prize if a matching Oregon lottery ticket wins a prize. Our plan would be to complete the public rulemaking process, including soliciting public comment, and then report back to the Commission in April with a recommendation. In the meantime, we have more information in the meeting materials for those in our audience who want to better understand the reason for the change and the language that we're proposing. Do you have questions before we move on?
Chair and Chris, I've got a couple questions if I can.
Sure.
So I'm looking at it's the rule 177-040-0053. Looking at looks like the added part in 1D David, the word facilitating, where it says the prohibition on facilitating the sale of a lottery ticket. I'm just curious on the word facilitating, given how that came up in Supreme Court cases with deportations. Is there any legal ambiguity with what facilitating actually is? And is there anything that we need to further define? Because as I see it, and as what you're talking about, people are going to try to game this new rule. They're going to try and poke the edges to see where they can get through and how they can get by. So I just want to continue to try to make this as tight as we can and make sure that the intent is there and that the words match that intent. So if you can address that however you see fit, I'd appreciate a response. And then I've got one other question as well. I'll go one at a time this time, not all at once.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think that where we landed with facilitate was we're kind of doing a little bit of a workaround where we're regulating the retailer through this rule as opposed to directly regulating the courier. And so we're trying to get at the retailer's behavior. And so we don't want them knowingly facilitating these sales if they are aware that the customers are outside the state. But I think it's worth talking with our legal counsel if that's the right word to use. So I think it's a good point, and we can look into that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then the next the question that I've got under same rule D, looking at big B below, matching service. Is matching service, is that implied to be 100% match? So if, say it's a 6 number combination for a winning ticket, if I sell 4, is that considered a match because I'm not doing the full 100% of those number variations? Or so is it an all or nothing? And so again, looking at that matching service, what is a matching service? And is there something that's defined or an industry standard of whole or in part? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, it does. I think definitely we were thinking of an exact match, right? Because you would need, if you don't have an exact match, you don't have a prize, right? So, but yeah, we could look at defining that more closely. There probably are some industry definitions we could look at and make sure we're covering our bases with that, but it's a good question.
Thank you. I think those were the only 2 for this one.
Thanks. Commissioner Dodd, did you have something?
Yeah, I had a quick question, not so much about the rule, although it is about the rule, but the rule mentions the retailer contract, I believe. And is there mention of the prohibition in the contract itself, or is like a reference to administrative rules in the contract? In other words, how would a retailer know exactly what conduct is prohibited for them regarding couriers?
Yeah, so the contract incorporates all our rules as a whole. So any violation of a rule is by reference a violation of the contract. So we don't have anything specific to couriers in the contract. We are working on the contract renewal right now, so we could, add specific language if we needed to. It's only a handful of retailers who work with couriers, and we sort of know who they are just based on sales volume. And so hopefully we've made them aware in written communication about the rule. But the rules incorporate into the contract by reference. So whatever we've gotten here applies to them through the contract.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chris, I do have one more question.
Sure.
And again, back kind of on the same flavor. So looking at, again, same rule, 1D, persons, and this is some of me being naive. Do you actually have to be a person with a beating heart to claim, or can an organization or a corporation be the winner? If you have all the employees come together, do you have to be a person to do it? And then in addition to that, should that be persons or should it be person or persons? Because if it's pluralized, but yet it's singular, again, getting back to the legal distinction between individual versus a group.
Sure. So in terms of claiming a lottery prize, you do have to be a person. You can't be a trust or corporation. So yes, you do need to be an individual as far as claiming a prize. yeah, we can talk about whether that should be persons, like if they were going in together to buy a ticket. Is that kind of what you're thinking of?
Yeah, I'm just reading the word right there. It says tickets to persons. It's pluralized, but does a pluralized persons, again, the legal side, and I'm not an attorney, also include a person that isn't pluralized?
I
So
see.
should that be person or persons as
Sure.
opposed to simply person? That's the simple part of it. Again,
Okay.
people are going to game this and trying to figure out how can we only go through this one more time, and try and stop any of the anticipated gaming that they're going to do, to try and get around this rule.
Yeah, that's good feedback. So we just throw this out as a draft at this point. So we'll work with our council to tighten up the language before we come back to you.
Sounds good. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, the second rulemaking item is an update on a rule that we proposed back in December when I was with you. So the rule would have limited the circumstances under which a retailer would not be charged for scratch-it tickets in their possession, including the proposal that would remove the option to give a retailer partial credit for the value of stolen tickets. Our plan in December was to open the comment period and then report back to you in February with a recommendation. During the comment period, we heard concerns from retailers about the proposed rule. Many noted that they don't have adequate control over their inventory levels to manage their risk if we move to the new rule. They questioned the fairness of being charged full value for non-activated tickets, and they felt a fundamental unfairness of making them bear the full financial costs associated with crime. We appreciate the retailers who took the time to comment. In light of the concerns raised, Director Wells has decided not to move the change forward at this time. We're going to look at our internal practices, and we may bring you a revised proposal in the future. Are there questions on this one?
I have a question. So you had mentioned that, they noted that they don't control their inventory levels. What does that mean? How can they not control their inventory levels?
That's a good question. And I'm not really an expert on this by any means, so we might need to get back to you. But we used to have a system where retailers could just order tickets as they go. We've moved to sort of an automated system. We're trying to improve the right amount of inventory for each retailer based on their sales. And that's a recent transition. And I think perhaps we need more time to get that right. And so some of the retailers who wrote in said, I have a bunch of tickets that I didn't even order, and they're sitting here, and they're sort of a security risk, but I didn't ask for these tickets, which of course is a fair point. So that was kind of what they're getting at. And we are still getting used to this auto ordering system. And so perhaps Director Wells was thinking perhaps we need to get that right size before we move forward with this. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right. The last item I have for you is just a very brief legislative update. So the 2026 session, as you may know, is in session. They started on February 2nd, and this is a short session, so they just have 35 days to complete their work. They've introduced 300 bills this session, and none of those affect the lottery directly. But as we noted in your memo, we do track bills of interest to the lottery, such as bills that allocate lottery revenue or bonds, or that apply broadly to all state agencies or to public bodies like the commission. The session will adjourn by March 8th. That's their deadline. So you'll have an end of session report in your March meeting materials. But in the meantime, we do have the list of bills we're tracking. If you're interested in that, that's in your meeting materials today. So that's all I have for you. Happy to answer questions if you have them.
Nope.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to open it up to the commissioners, if there's any communication or other business that they would like to bring up. All right. Then this concludes today's meeting of the Oregon State Lottery Commission. The next meeting is scheduled on Friday, March 27th at 10 a.m. Thank you all for attending today's meeting. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.